everybody, welcome back to Record-ology. Okay, this is going to be fun. Today we're going to be taking a look at a vintage Sony CD player from 1987. My goal is that we're going to review it like any other product, and then we're going to do a direct feed sound test between it and a newer CD to listen to what a vintage versus new CD would sound like. And then with vintage tech, I just love looking inside. So we're going to tear it apart, see how it works, see what makes it tick, and go from there. You're not going to want to miss this.
Welcome to Record-ology.
So I definitely was not anticipating doing a video about a CD player. It is one of my favorite formats, arguably my favorite audio format. And when I came across this device the other day at the thrift store, this, by the way, for those of you in the nation, we went crate digging and things at Goodwill, a new Goodwill to me. And I said I found something and you'd have to wait till this weekend to see what it was. Well, this is it. And by the way, if you're not a member of the nation, you're invited to join. Link in the description below. Extra shows, all that good stuff. We also do stuff over on TikTok, so check us out over there if you haven't already. Anyway, so I picked this up because it's a unique CD player. It's fairly historical. This is not the first Sony CD player. This is, one of the first Sony CD players. This is the Sony CDP-21 from 1987. So the Sony Philips partnership that produced the first two compact disc players in 1983 had come to pass approximately 5 years before this unit came out. There's not a whole lot of information out there on this. However, Via Westlife reviewed the CDP-31, I believe it was, several years ago. And it's pretty much, I wouldn't say identical to this, but it's very, very similar. So we're going to review this. We are going to open it up, see how it works, test it out, and I'm going to do a direct feed sound test between this and a modern CD player. And we're going to talk about the sound quality differences, if there are any. Hopefully this works. I haven't even turned it on yet, so I'm really hoping that this powers up, and we'll see here in a little bit. So this drawer is massive. It says it has a digital filter, linear skate, disc loading. You will see nowhere on here that it says 1-bit DA converter. That's because back in this era, they were still using pretty primitive DACs. And in fact, this probably has a 16-bit DAC. So the 1-bit DACs, hadn't come into play yet at this point. And then there's analog filters and whatnot. So it's definitely, first gen compact disc technology, but it should be really interesting. So automatic music sensor, random music sensor. I'm not sure exactly what that means. By the way, this does not have a remote control, and I don't know if this even came with one. We have our transport controls down here, open, close. We have forward and back, and then a fast forward and rewind. This probably features an old school vacuum fluorescent display, so that'll be interesting. Hopefully it's not too dim. Over here we have the giant play pause. I love early Sony CD players with their giant, play pause buttons, as well as program, which is amazing that this thing could program. And you got your stop button, you've got a shuffle button, you can repeat. And this is cool, auto space and time. So there are some features on this. It is not a bare bones featured CD player. 5 years into the whole CD player thing, it was definitely still reserved for the wealthier people, the people that had some money. This is probably, $600-700 unit when it first came out. And, Sony is synonymous back in this era with quality. I mean, it's a Sony sticker you see here was really a thing. Growing up in this era, I can tell you that when you saw Sony, it was good. That's just the way it was. This is a Japanese electronics device. This is, really high quality stuff. So we're going to power it up, see how it works here after we get done with our tour. Let's look at the back panel. By the way, this thing is massive. It's about the same thickness as a VCR, and forward and back, it is deep, it is wide, it is a large device, it is very heavy. All right, on the back panel here, so this is like a metal paneling. I'm sure that this has something to do with the shielding for the power supply, which is in there. Going over here, all we have is analog left and right outputs. There's no optical, none of that stuff. This is a bare bones, unit. in that sense, although it does have some features, which is cool. But in terms of connectivity, it's pretty bare bones. You can see the date stamp there, April 1987, and that's about it. Let's take a look underneath. This bottom part of the cabinet is plastic and some sort of sticker on a plastic foot. This one you can see has slid off over the years. Keep in mind, this thing is 35 years old. I mean, this is history right here. The fact that it's 35 years old is remarkable. There's not a lot of electronics that are being made today that will be functioning 35 years from now. But there's a good possibility that this will be. Now, if you're looking for like a daily driver CD player, I would caution you against going this old. I would go late 90s, like my Sony 5-disc changers, like 96, 97, 98. That's like the sweet spot, I would say, for vintage CD players as well as cassette players. Once you get this old, you may have to replace capacitors. You may have hiss in the audio due to worn capacitors and other components. The laser assemblies can go bad, so there is risk involved. I paid $9. I've got the price tag covered up right now because I may end up taking this back if it doesn't work. Now, a lot of people freak out when I say that, but you know, we donate like crazy to Goodwill, so we're definitely no harm, no foul there. Okay, let's plug it in and start by seeing if it works. Okay, moment of truth. Let's power it on, or attempt to. Display comes on, that's a good thing, all right? We're off to a good start. Oh, the CD tray comes out. So let's take a look at that CD tray. Yeah, this is super old school. So it's got these like spring-loaded pieces here, and the disc rests right on top of there. So speaking of a disc, let's start with a professional pressed compact disc, not a CDR. And let's go ahead and, oh boy. Ooh, that doesn't sound good. Did you hear that? It didn't, it like went in and made a noise and then popped back out. Let's try again. Oh boy. Okay, so we got a little bit of work to do, it looks like. Let's see what happens if I put it in without a disc. Ooh, yeah, that's not good. Yeah. Okay. I guess we should look inside next. So let's go ahead and open it up. Okay, so I've got the screws removed and we're ready to take a look inside. I'm getting a little nervous at this point, so let's hope that it's not difficult to fix. There may be a screw. I forgot one screw. So, okay, this time for real. All the screws removed. The big reveal. Cool. Awesome. Always love looking under the hood, seeing how stuff works. I did this with it plugged in, which is extremely unwise, but at the same time will give us an opportunity to test it a little bit while it is powered on. So what do we have here? We have the power supply right here. We have the mechanism. This uses a clamp type mechanism that comes down from above to clamp that disc versus a spindle snap-on type of mechanism. Here is the main board. Let's take a look at some of those chips. Always curious to see what brands of chips products use. Okay, I see a Mitsubishi chip back there. Another one to the left of that. This IC over here, I do not recognize the brand name on that one. Let me know if you do. There's a lot more under this board, obviously. Quick look at the capacitors there shows that none are really blown out. Obviously this uses a modern capacitor, so these ones have a tendency to last a lot longer than an old wax paper type of capacitor. There's a couple monster ones here in the back. But everything visually checks out. That doesn't mean it's there in good condition necessarily, but the fact that they are intact is a good sign. You can see some trim pots. Even though I don't know what most of this stuff does, I'm not an electronics expert by any means. My father is. But I, barely know the difference between a resistor and a capacitor and a, potentiometer and stuff like that. Basic. Interesting. Look at these pieces back here. These like copper towers. They kind of look like shields of sorts. It's kind of interesting. They actually look like they protect a vertical IC. It's really cool. Over here is a closer look at that mechanism. And another look at the power module in the back. Bando, that's pretty typical. I've seen those a lot. And some circuitry where the actual plug comes in as well. Let's look at the back of the front panel. There's really not too much to see here. This is the back of the display. As I said before, it's a vacuum fluorescent display, so there's actually, it's almost like the back of a picture tube display. There's some depth to that. A modern display would be flat. And obviously, so much of what you see here will have been miniaturized. You know, in the ensuing 35 years, they would not need this much components from an electronic standpoint or from a mechanical standpoint. This mechanism is massive, and you can accomplish just what this does in a lot easier way. One thing that's interesting is this giant push rod here. This is the power button on the front. So that is just a mechanical connection back to the actual switch in the back here, which is interesting. By the way, let's see what happens when we power it on. Tray comes out. Now there are sensors that, this is cool. This is really cool. Look at this. Really neat. There are sensors that tell it, is the drawer out, is the drawer in, etc., etc. And clearly there's a miscommunication there. It could be as simple as blasting stuff off with deoxit, putting on lubrication, running it for a few times. This thing's probably sat dormant for 20 of the last 35 years. Okay, let's go ahead and try to insert the disc. Yeah, so we definitely have a problem there. Could it be a mechanical issue down here? That grease looks pretty well dried up. It wouldn't surprise me if it's a mechanical lubrication type of issue. So what I'm going to do now, off camera, because it's kind of boring to watch, is I'm going to do some deoxit blasting and let this sit for a while and try it again. So I will be back in the next clip, which will probably be a couple hours later for me. Unfortunately, my dreams of the deoxit doing the trick were dashed. It did blast off all of the dirty old grease. However, what happens now, by the way, I'm thankful I thought to take the Quo CD out, the good CD. I put in just a test disc. But now it took the thing in there with a horrible noise and will not let go now. So this is what it's doing. It's like vibrating. So to me, it sounds like a mechanical issue. I don't think it's a contact switch. I think that it's maybe a worm gear that isn't seated properly. I'm not 100% sure, but yeah, that's all we get. I can turn it off and then back on, and that's it. I can't play the disc. I can't spin the disc because I don't think it realizes that the drawer is in. So I'm going to unplug it, and I'm going to remove the screws and try to take the actual transport mechanism out. Somewhat surprisingly, there was only two screws, one on this side, one over there, nothing back here. So even when the screws were in, you could kind of lift the back up a little bit. So there's got to be some sort of wire braid connecting this, a ribbon cable, but so far I haven't come across that. So let's just see what happens when we lift up. Okay, the door is getting stuck on the lip. It's possible I maybe should have taken off the faceplate, but this seems to be getting us somewhere. Okay, let me reposition the shot here. This is kind of weird because down here there's this post and this tab, and it looks kind of like a ragged edge of plastic that I don't know if that's supposed to go through here to hold on to it or if there's broken off plastic. It's kind of hard to tell. Kind of makes me wonder if this thing's been serviced in the past or at least opened up. Okay, so we've got a couple of motors here. One will be to spin the disc, one will be the transport tray. And I don't see anything that's obviously amiss. I do see the rail. Let's look a little closer there. You can see the rail back there, a couple more gears. I do not see a worm gear, so I'm not 100% sure what's going on here. So I am going to actually power it on again, which is risky with exposed components like this. Don't do this. This is dumb. And I'm going to see if watching it attempt to open and close from this angle gives us a clue. I guess I'll hold it like this. The unit is on. Let's try to eject. It just seems like there's some kind of motor, some kind of gear that is stripped out or somehow not, doing what it's supposed to. That is real bizarre. All right, I'm going to have to get in there really closely here and look, see what I can find out. I was wrong. There's actually 3 motors in there. I still cannot pinpoint where this sound is coming from or even which motor is in contact with the primary issue. That is so weird. Always curious in the comments below what you guys think I should be doing. I'm sure I'm doing something wrong. Okay, we're getting deeper and deeper here. Everything that connects the transport to the main circuit board is made up of one of these little plugs here, one of these little ribbon cables. So I'm going to detach all of those after I take a picture to make sure I put it back together. And that will allow me to further disassemble the transport or take a closer look. Yeah. This is also a really good time to bring up the fact that just because they quote unquote test something at a thrift store doesn't mean they're making sure it works. What they do is they plug it in, lights come on, oh, it works, quote unquote. So there's no shame in having to return if you need to. Okay, so I've got it detached, sort of this Medusa's web here. I'm going to zoom in because I did find what may be the issue, and that is this toothed rail right here. I still can't quite see, where the gear is that rides on that rail, but surely that has something to do with it. I don't know if it's that blue thing. No, the blue thing is probably connected to those tabs. So we're getting closer, continuing to dig in. At this point, you have to be liking the project side of it, not just the CD player. Most people just be pissed and not want to have a broken CD player, but we're here for the experience. So we're going to need to go down one more level. This whole piece right here is where the assembly is attached to. These are the bottom sides of shock mounts that will give it a little bit of sound isolation, just passive sound isolation. Before I forget, I have identified a couple Toshiba ICs, which is kind of interesting. And I also located the worm gear for the actual laser assembly sled, which looks like it's working fine. I can exercise that manually. But the rail for the drawer, which is what I'm suspecting this is in relation to, is what's giving us issues, and I cannot get to it. I've tried and tried without getting this part off. So let me remove these screws and see what's under there. I was also reminded of why I don't like screws that go through shock mounts like that, because springs go flying, bad things happen. So yeah, these will need to be put back together. Inevitably, they won't go back together right. And another couple of wire braids here. Oops. It's a good thing that's not a prized CD. Okay, so that's awesome. So that's self-contained. We just take that off. And now we are down to this level. Can we see anything that will give us a clue? Let me see if I can turn the light on. If you look in here, you will see the rail that I think is the culprit, or the gear. So hopefully we can spot some component that's trying to make contact with that and kind of go from there. Okay, I think I have found the culprit. I'm going to shine some additional light down there. So see that black gear there right above the blue part? That is a round gear. It doesn't look like it from this angle, but that communicates with the rail. And as you can see, that rail is kind of chewed up. It's been used a lot, you can tell. Also, if you look underneath the motor shaft, if I had a third hand, I could show you, but there is a belt that looks like it's in good condition. So what I'm going to try to do now is try to exercise this gear by hand, if I can get my finger under there that far. Yeah, it feels like it's seized up. Now, sometimes in so doing, you will see the drawer start to slowly open up. I don't know if that's happening here or if I'm just spinning in place. I think I might be spinning in place. Yeah, it's definitely tight, and there's grease in there. But I think that is the problem. It's like it's not biting on the drive shaft or the gear. Sometimes the best moments happen off camera. So you know, I could see that you'll notice the disc is no longer in there, and I'll explain why in a second, but that thing was just seized up, completely seized up, and I don't know if the gear, the round gear, was just not making firm enough contact with that side gear that it couldn't get enough traction and was spinning in place, and that's why it was vibrating. So I decided to force it and see if I could force a seized up mechanism. This is now physically moving very smooth. I can feel those gears engaging, and there's drag. The disc went flying. I'm so glad I took the Quo disc out earlier. This piece went flying too, which I have no idea about. So have we, you know, sent it to its grave, or have we freed up a seized up part? I cannot tell. But what I can tell is this. I'm coming to the end of my willingness to deal with this unit any further. So I'm going to have one more quick look-see, and I'm going to put it all back together if I can find all the parts, which I think I can, and we're going to try it one more time. I'm not super confident at this point. Also, one thing I did want to mention too, while we got the mechanism open, sorry, the bird is screeching. He's been really loud today. I don't know why. But if you are the proud owner of a 3-inch CD, this CD player will not be able to play that. There's no inset piece. There's no spindle. So this is only for the larger compact discs. So, okay, again, this is one of those moments where you're going to have a lot more fun than I, because you don't have to get this thing back together. Update. My confidence in this going to function again is low. So this part, I was comparing my own footage as we were looking through this thing earlier, and it goes in here somewhere. But if you notice, that black plastic piece looks like it's sheared off from the top of that one. That being said, there's still a movement, but it's like got this ka-chunk kind of play before the gears kind of engage properly. So I don't know if it'll work like that or not. So I'm still going to put it back together and give it a shot, but this thing may have played its last CD before we even got a chance. So okay, so I got it back together. It went a little bit easier than expected. I'm really worried still about what this is. So okay, everything's plugged in. Let's just see for grins. Yeah. Hey, it's moving. That's an improvement. Hey, look at that. Look at that. It came in. Oh, yeah. All right, you guys want any electronics repaired? Feel free to send your most prized possessions to me. The P.O. box is in the description. But that's going to do it for now, I guess. Sorry, guys. I don't know what to do. It's screwed. It's worse. It was bad before. It was probably broken before, and I sealed the fate. So apparently this is a necessary part. Who would have thought? It's a bummer because I really wanted to do that sound test, but it's going to have to wait for another video. So, yeah, that's an absolute shame. Look at that. Yeah, that's not good. Still has the original problem. I feel like... That's weird, man. That's so weird. What do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments below. I'm convinced it has something to do with that part we isolated, but maybe it's just worn out. It's acting like it's stripped and there's just not enough, you know, contact for that gear to function anymore. Like it's just worn out. So, dang it. Well, that didn't go so well, did it? You know, it happens sometimes, you guys. I apologize to you that we weren't able to have a full-fledged sound test, or any sound test for that matter. But we did learn something. We, you know, got to see how the basic mechanics of this unit were designed, and I think I've got a good idea for how it should work. And I still think that it was a mechanical issue. I honestly think that it was a lost cause before we even started. I think that those gears were just like stripped, I think is what it comes down to. So again, I want to know from you if there's a step that I missed, or if you could confirm that I gave it my best shot or whatnot. So, but that's going to do it for now, guys. Stay tuned to this channel. If you haven't given me a thumbs up yet on this video, I would appreciate that. Also, consider subscribing, hitting the bell notification so you don't miss a single thing. We've got a lot of cool stuff coming your way that I'm very excited to share with you. But that's going to do it for now. Happy record hunting, and we'll see you next time.